On this episode of the Bronze Metalist podcast, we continue Death Metal December with Netherheaven by Revocation. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Bronze Metalist podcast. I'm Kale.
I'm OJ.
We're two professional broadcasters. We like metal and we like to talk about it. And today we're continuing our favorite yearly tradition of Death Metal December by talking about an album from this year by a band called Revocation. It's called Netherheaven, and it's a fan-fucking-tastic album.
That's accurate.
It's a lot of fun, and we will we'll get to talking about it in a little bit. First, how are you? We're recording on Friday.
Yeah.
Because
snowstorm.
A lot of snow has happened.
Yeah, we had a blizzard. I got stuck in a snowbank for a while, for a couple of hours here the other day.
Yes.
Then, it was on Wednesday when we normally do this, and I came in and you're like, so we're doing this on Friday, right?
Yeah.
That sounds like a great idea.
Not only had you broken your spine, digging yourself out with the help of some kind-hearted folks, but also we were about an hour out at that point from a fuckload more snow about to begin. It's been the thing with this snowstorm that hit us this week where all of the snow happens evening and overnight, and then it doesn't really snow for the first part of the day. Right. And then it snows again at night for some reason. It's been the thing.
Is it snowing yet?
I don't know. Was it supposed to snow more this evening?
I don't remember. It's all I know is snow anymore.
It's all I know is snow. Yeah. All I know is snow. All I know is snow. It's a weird Christmas song about a man who's just like lost in the Arctic and losing his mind.
Right. He went walking in a winter wonderland and didn't make it back.
He was looking for Santa.
Right.
He just walked out into the Arctic.
Right.
And maybe he was already losing his mind.
Right. And now he doesn't even feel cold anymore.
He's like one of those penguins that walks towards the mountains for no discernible reason.
That penguin is going to starve to death.
Is this... Can a penguin be insane? I just love that video. Just so bleak. Werner Herzog talking over the image of this adorable little penguin just walking to its own doom because their internal compass got turned around or whatever. Right. Because birds have that. They have their instinctual internal GPS. However the hell it works, whether they sense magnetic fields or what the fuck. I don't know if scientists truly understand precisely the mechanism, other than we know it does work for migratory birds. But so I guess it can get broke.
Anything can.
Anything can get broken. But it's been a time. You had a fun adventure.
Yeah. When I picked up my child who was sick at school, barfed at school, and then took the child home and then got stuck in the middle of an intersection with snow up to the bumper of my car.
And you have a very low sitting car.
I do.
Well.
The next car I buy is going to be like a truck or something. I'm
a
done with this
Jeep
shit.
or something.
Yeah.
Or a SUV of some kind.
Unless I move away.
And just go to somewhere where this isn't a problem.
Right.
Move down to we all know that stuff like this never happens in a place like Texas. It would never be a problem down there.
Right.
But it will. And because you were like, could you drive the Jeep down here and get me? And it's like, I'd love to say yes, but I've never been the one to have to pull people out of the snow. And you also said once you got back, like, I guess I could have hopped in the Jeep. Right. I didn't think about that either. But it also took a while to get the Jeep started, get the windshields defrosted, and because and also like dig it out because it had just been sitting in the parking lot of the radio station.
Right. The parking lot had been cleaned out, but the Jeep was in it at the time, so they couldn't necessarily.
They just cleaned around it, and so there were snow drifts all up the sides of it. But I had it running and ready to go in case you were not able to find help. In which case I could have just gone down there and got you. Right. If all else failed.
But when because I was in my old neighborhood and my old neighbor came walking out of his garage with his no-turn snowblower.
This'll do.
I'm like, yeah, hell yeah.
Snowblowers are great.
Yeah, they are.
They're a wonderful piece of machinery. And I think almost anywhere in the United States, except for like the Mojave Desert in Southern California, I think it's probably useful if you have a garage. Maybe think about having a snowblower, because I mean, probably depending upon where you are, 99% of the time you will not need it, and you will feel foolish for having it.
Sure, but that 1%.
That 1% of time, you will be everyone in your neighborhood's personal hero. People will look at you and say, thank God Dave had that snowblower. What an incredibly well-prepared person, that Dave. He's my hero. And I'm going to give him $1 million.
A really big check.
I'm going to give him a really big check for being such a cool dude.
Or what was it we were saying the other day?
Happen.
1 million blowjobs? What was that?
1 million? Yeah, I can't remember.
That's just overwhelming.
It's like 1 million blowjobs. I can't remember the context of that. I don't remember. There's no segue to what I wanted to talk about next, so I'll just start talking about it.
Go to it.
So did you hear that Henry Cavill is not going to be Superman?
Right.
So he's had an interesting couple of months where I was like, all right, announced that he's leaving The Witcher because, creative differences with the showrunners because they're not taking his input about keeping things close to the books. And then and it was he officially announced sometime around then that he was going to be returning as Superman for the next Superman film. And then yesterday he announced that in fact he will not be returning as Superman after continued conversations with, I guess James Gunn is attached to it now. Right. James Gunn just gets to do whatever he wants, I guess. Marvel's got no particular attachment to him. I guess that was probably part of his renegotiated contract after the whole Twitter debacle when he got fired from Guardians of the Galaxy and then got brought back
right.
After he went and did the Suicide Squad. I guess his contract with Disney was basically like, you don't get to tell me I can't do DC films anymore. I get to do what I want as part of, repayment for you firing me unjustly.
Because people over at Universal were like, we want what Marvel's doing.
We want that. But it was announced that he's not going to be returning to Superman. And then this morning, it was announced that he is a little company, a little company in the UK with a mildly well-known franchise of fantasy and science fiction tabletop war games said, hey, Henry Cavill, you like to play our games, and we're about to close a multi-million-dollar television deal with Amazon. And we know that you were upset after The Witcher with them not listening to your input about keeping things close to the source material. So do you want to just be in charge of our Warhammer TV project? So yeah, Henry Cavill is now set to star in some sort of Amazon-funded Warhammer 40K television series. He's going to be executive producing and starring in it.
Wow.
Which is, I think that's fantastic because I'm a fan of Henry Cavill and I really like Warhammer. And he also really likes Warhammer.
Have you ever played Warhammer?
I've not played the tabletop games. I've played, video games and whatnot.
You listen to Bolt Thrower.
I have two fucking Space Marines sitting over there.
That's true. I mean, you know all about the thing. I know that, but I'm just wondering if you'd ever had the opportunity to actually play the game.
I don't have nearly enough money or time for that. I do not have the time, money, or patience, I think, to play Warhammer tabletop games. I've told myself for years that maybe I could get into Kill Team, which is a small scale, skirmish level version of 40K, where you have a squad of elite guys, and you have a small scale battle that is easier to manage, and you don't need nearly as many models, which even in regular 40K, depending upon how many points a battle is, because that's how they, that's how you build a roster, is each unit costs a certain number of points. Depending upon how big that limit is, you don't need to have all that many models to fill it.
Sure.
But the less models you have, the less the less options you have, depending upon who you're fighting against. Someone might have an army that will absolutely trash yours, and if you've just got all the models that you've got, then you don't really have any options but to play. If you're just playing for the fun of it, then that's fine. But if you want to do people do tournaments the same way that there's Magic the Gathering tournaments and stuff like that. I don't think I would have the patience for any of that bullshit, but I just like the little plastic guys.
Yeah. I was only ever in one Magic the Gathering tournament.
And how'd that go?
It went terrible because it was me and my buddy Dan at the time. This was during radio school. This is while I was in school to go to be in radio, and we heard there was going to be a Magic the Gathering tournament at Dakota Square Mall. And
wow!
And so wasn't
there a hobby shop in the mall at one point?
There was, and this was inside. There was a Chinese restaurant.
Wow!
That is where Barnes and Noble is now.
Okay.
And the movie theater used to also be where Barnes and Noble is now.
I can kind of see that. That's a big space in there.
Yeah. But in the Chinese restaurant is where they're having this tournament. And we had stayed up all night long smoking weed.
As you do before a Magic tournament.
Right. And we put our decks together. We were the first guys out. We were the first guys to leave. Because we were exhausted, still slightly stoned. And we're like, we're not.
We don't have the ability to strategize.
No, I don't have. My brain is not functioning.
Brain's not on. Every time someone has tried to explain to me how Magic works, I just kind of tune out. And that's just a universal thing about card games in general, for some reason. Every time people are like, hey, do you want to play this card game with us? And I'm just like, no.
Not really.
Because you're going to explain how the rules work to me, and then it's not going to stick. And we're going to play a couple of half-assed games, and I'm not going to have fun. So why don't you and these other people who know what they're doing play, and I'll just watch and chime in, in the conversations. That's perfectly fine with me, to just sit and, be in your physical presence. I don't necessarily, which is that sort of situation is odd for me, because normally I'm the type of person where in order to hang out, there needs to be an activity like what we're doing now.
Right.
This is how you and I hang out.
Exactly. Or we play D&D.
Or we play D&D or something like that. I've never been good at just hanging out with people.
Dude, there has been one other adult human being who's been into my apartment, and I've been there a fucking year. My kids have been there, but there's purpose to that. I want to be their father and help them grow up, and
of course,
and do stuff with them. But if a person comes over, hey, you want to watch TV? I'd be like, no, I really don't.
I will watch TV on my own time, thank you.
I don't need you to watch TV. And in fact, I feel like it's even weirder than watching it alone, because when you're with a person, you should probably engage that person, but you can't do that while trying to absorb what's going on in the TV.
Yeah.
So now we're going to sit here quietly looking at the same thing.
And in television and movies and stuff, I'm just not a fan of doing that with another person, especially if it's something I haven't seen before.
Right.
Necessarily. I think the The only like TV series that I've really watched with another person in recent memory was I watched Over the Garden Wall.
Sure.
With a friend of mine.
I need to watch that.
They showed that to me and I was like, oh yeah, this is very good. But it was short enough and we were just hanging out. Like, yeah, generally I just don't hang out just to hang it. Like there have been times where I've like gone to Fargo to like go to concerts and stuff.
But that's purpose.
But that's purpose. But I'm there for like a couple days and just staying at my friend's apartment and I am uncomfortable the whole time because I'm just there. And just watching TV and it's like, I don't know what to do with myself because we're not doing the thing that I'm here for at the moment. And I need purpose. I need to do something. And I just can't hang out. But if I'm at like a party or something, which never happens anymore.
No.
But when I was at college and stuff, I was like, oh, yeah, you want to play this card game? No, I don't. But you go ahead and have fun. I'm just going to sit here and be around and just exist. Because then it kind of feels similar to being alone, which is what I know. I just kind of am.
I hear you.
And I can just sit and enjoy the things going on around me as if I'm watching TV. Which that I'm perfectly content with that, but I don't need to be involved.
Right.
I don't need to directly be involved.
You ever do that and then forget you're in the room?
Yes, definitely. Just zone out. And then someone's like, hey, Kale, what? Oh, sorry. I was disassociating hardcore.
Yeah.
I forgot I was here and I thought this was some sort of virtual reality. But yeah.
What else is going on? Warhammer. Yeah. We were talking about Warhammer.
I don't even really know what faction I would play because like some Space Marine chapters are cool, but they're kind of boring.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where it's like they're the poster boys for the whole franchise. And something about it is just kind of uncool. I say that talking about Warhammer.
Right.
I do find the tech priests very interesting. They have a really cool, like sort of cyberpunk, but also steampunk like aesthetic where like they are all cyborgs, but
are they steampunk cyborgs?
They're not really. They have like glowing eyes and clearly technologically robotic bits, but then there's like a lot of brass embellishments. They have like their guns look really cool. They have one that's called the galvanic rifle, which looks like if you took an M1 Garand, stretched it out, and then added some brass bullshit on it. And it looks, and a couple glowy bits.
Right.
And it looks really cool compared to all the other like sci-fi guns. It's like, oh, this is like antiquated. It's got fucking wood furniture being carried by the faction that's like, we hate being, fleshy human beings and want to turn ourselves into robots because we worship robot Jesus. But here's our gun that has wood furniture on it. That's just kind of cool.
Oh, Lord, he's made out of wood.
They have like fucking ornithopters, and not even like the super cool like Dune ornithopters. It's like, no, it's like this has like wings on it that clearly have like stretched canvas or leather. But we don't use those to fly. They're just there for aesthetics, basically.
Wow.
They have one like super long sniper rifle that I think is called like the Transuranic Arquebus or something like that. It's fucking nuts. Like their whole aesthetic, I think, is really cool. They all wear like these red hoods and everything. They're I think they're kind of neat. They'd probably be a pain in the ass to paint though, because there's lots of little bits and pieces. That's one of the nice things about regular Space Marines. Lots of smooth surfaces.
Easy to paint.
Easy peasy to paint. And no exposed faces unless it's a named character, because they never wear fucking helmets for some reason. I think they give you helmets you can have them wear helmets, which I would, because it bothers me that they don't wear their fucking helmets all the time.
Or jackets.
Or Jack. Yeah, you showed up here in the midst of a blizzard warning. Well, I suppose the blizzard warning's expired an hour ago.
But it's still cold.
With not but a
have two shirts on.
Flannel shirt and a t-shirt. You're Donald Ducking it though. No.
No pants or underwear at all.
Yeah. I don't know how you walked through the parking lot, but no, I had an old coat and I was just like, you're wearing this home because if you get stuck again, you are going to be in a lot of trouble, young man.
Okay, Aunt Kale.
You're going to be in a lot of trouble.
I also, speaking of games, I bought a whole bunch of games this past weekend.
Yes.
Yeah. I was noticing because I told my youngest son who wanted to play one of these games with me because there's a multiplayer feature on it.
Yes.
He wanted me to buy Assassin's Creed. What's
Unity?
The one? Unity, yes. Yeah, Unity, which I've played it a bunch and I haven't found the multiplayer function yet. Maybe I just haven't got
I don't know where it's been a long time since I've played. I haven't played an Assassin's Creed game since that specific game came out.
Wow.
Because it's fairly old at this point.
Right. And I could have bought the game individually for like regular price, but they also had the
bundles.
The bundle that you could buy 6
for the same price.
For the same price. Because
online distribution of video games is wild.
Very wild. So now it says ass 12 times in my...
Ass. Assassin's Creed is one of those series that are really just kind of drop. Like how far back did the bundles that you bought go? Like what's the oldest game that you have?
The first one.
The first one. I don't know if I would really recommend the first one all that much. It's clear what they were going for, but it just doesn't really accomplish the what was written in the while you're playing it, you can kind of feel what they wanted it to be.
Right.
And it's just not quite getting there. Assassin's Creed 2, on the other hand, they achieved that. Assassin's Creed 2, Brotherhood, and Revelations, all the games that star Ezio Auditore da Firenze are all quite good. I very much enjoyed those.
And I'm looking forward to Black Flag.
Black Flag is extremely fun. And Assassin's Creed 3 is okay. That was the first one where they were like, hey, here's a whole bunch of extra bullshit for you to do. Because apparently being a super cool, sneaky assassin influencing history is not fun enough for you.
You need chores.
Here's some chores. You can manage some trade routes. And here's crafting because it's 2012 and every game needs a crafting mini game in it. And we still haven't gotten over that. But the like side games, the side mini games in Black Flag were a lot more fun because it was like fun pirate bullshit.
Right.
Where like, oh, you can, when you attack another ship, you can take the ship for your own, or you can scuttle it. And if you take the ship for your own, you can put some of your own pirates on it, and they'll work for you. And eventually you have a fleet of pirates that you can send out to do other missions, and you'll make money that you can use to buy new weapons and upgrades and stuff.
Nice.
And there's like like a whaling mini game, and there's cool high seas adventure stuff in there that was genuinely fun to do versus all the other shit in Assassin's Creed 3 that just felt like chores.
I think it'd be cool though if they had a pirate simulator that was all real time.
All right, boys, time for us to sail to Havana.
Yeah.
We'll get there in 3 days.
3 weeks.
Well, it depends on where you are. I don't think it would take 3 weeks to sail from like Miami to Havana.
Oh, no, right. No. It would not.
Pirates generally weren't sailing across the Atlantic.
I'm just saying coming from Britain or whatever.
Yes. The game begins with you already in the Caribbean in the golden age of piracy in the early 1700s. And yeah, it's Black Flag is a lot of fun. There's also not like most of it is just set with you on your ship sailing around. There's much less of it that is actually set like in the big urban environments that Assassin's Creed is known for. Especially like other than the last couple of games, Valhalla and Odyssey are in big, more traditional open world maps. Because they're also set in time periods that don't have big, huge urban environments.
That's what Max just finished playing, is Odyssey. And I know people like Odyssey, but like a thing that bothers me about and this has been true of the Assassin's Creed series technically since past the first game, because the first game is also the only one that plays with the actual real world historical context of Templars and assassins, because the word assassin comes from the Crusades, where they were a specific like sect of killers that were like, I get kind of, as I understand it, sort of mercenaries, or like a religious sect. The word assassin is actually related to hashish, because they were rumored to be druggies essentially, but they were I think in historical context, it's not inappropriate necessarily to call them terrorists. They essentially were terrorists. And this was during the Crusades, and the game changes some of the historical context between assassins and Templars and that sort of thing. But that's the only one that's set in that actual time frame. All the rest of them, play with that basic concept of like the assassins are all about, freedom and intellectual freedom. It's just their whole thing is just like freedom.
Human beings should be free to do what they want and deal with the consequences after that, but there shouldn't be some sort of world order that enforces itself on human beings and stops them from expressing themselves. And the Templars are all about bringing about order and peace, but through force and it's a classic sort of conflict,
right?
Rebels versus the Empire type shit, but it's all happening in secret. But then at a certain point, Ubisoft basically went, so here's an idea for a game. It's going to be a fantasy Viking game. And also for brand recognition, we're going to call it an Assassin's Creed game. Like they could just be making these open world RPGs and not have to contrive a reason for it to have assassins and Templars in it. It always feels so contrived. It's like you could just have it be a pirate game.
Could just be a Viking game. Black
Flag is practically just a pirate game. The assassins are fucking barely in it.
Assassin's Creed, Animal Crossing.
And it's all AC.
Yeah.
And it's all like the whole series exists within this framing device of the Animus machine. The first 5 or whatever, you play as a guy. You're technically playing as a guy named Desmond Miles,
right,
who's been captured by the Templars and put into this machine that lets him view his genetic memories because he's descended from all these different assassins.
Right, they all take place in modern time.
Yes, and you're using a machine to view the past.
Yeah.
They might have done away with that direct framing device in the most recent ones. The last one I played all of was Black Flag, so I don't know what the continued framing device has been in those games, but
of course I've had the song TV Party stuck in my head for like this entire conversation.
Why?
Just about it's a song by Black Flag.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Speaking of songs,
yeah,
let's talk about the reason we're here. The reason for the season, Death Metal December, Revocation. So Revocation is an American technical death metal band
from Boston,
Massachusetts.
Boston,
with good old Boston.
Good old Boston.
Now I'm just thinking of I think I say Boston because in Dimension 20 Starstruck, there's a planet that they go to called New Texas, and one of the cities that they go to is Boston, like Austin, Texas, but with a B, like Boston, Massachusetts. but everyone there talks like they're from Texas.
Right.
Anyway, Revocation.
Not from Texas.
Not from Texas. They're from Boston, Massachusetts. They were formed in, the early 2000s. Their original name of their band was called Cryptic Warning. But they've been together since the early 2000s and have been making music. For most of their career, they've had a pretty strong thrash metal influence to, some of their records could be considered more thrash metal than death metal. But death metal is, at the very least, has always been a part of their DNA. On this album in particular, it is the bulk of the genre influence, I would say.
Indeed.
And as like a technical death metal band, this is something we've talked about before, where technical death metal is often a genre that I kind of bounce off of because it just sounds too produced. It sounds too digital. It sounds too perfect.
Well, it's because it kind of has to. If they're going to make these very intricate riffs and intricate music, it has to be clear.
Yeah, and if you don't have a lot of money to throw out producing an album, something that is more traditionally produced might end up sounding a little too muddy,
right,
for how fast and how complex your playing is going to end up being. But if you've got a bit more time to throw at it, you can end up with something that doesn't sound so digital and so produced, and still sounds more classic. And this is one of those albums.
This sounds great.
This is definitely a technical death metal album. Very fast, very intricate riffs, very catchy riffs. That's
incredibly catchy.
That's I think the thrash metal influence there. But also this album sounds amazing. I love the guitar tone on this. Nothing sounds too crunchy, right? Like nothing sounds too. There's like something I've noticed on some like technical death metal albums where like there is some fuzz to the guitar, but even the fuzz sounds artificial,
right? Which
is odd when you're talking about what is just a electrical signal that's being picked up by a magnet underneath a vibrating metal string.
It doesn't sound like the way nature intended it.
Yeah. But this just sounds this sounds amazing.
Yeah.
It sounds really good. And it sounds evil too.
Yeah. It's got his choice of tones, his choice of keys.
Yes,
it's fantastic.
The guy would be Dave Davidson,
right?
Who's
Dave Davidson.
The lead vocalist and lead guitarist
and rhythm guitarist.
They are a 3-piece, which is incredibly impressive. Obviously, on an album like this, you've got double track guitars and that.
Obviously,
sort of thing. They haven't been a 3-piece for their entire history. At different points in their history, they have been a 3-piece, sort of on and off again. They started as a 3-piece. They were a 4-piece for a number of years between like 2010 and 2020. They were a 4-piece with a rhythm guitarist, but they have recently gone back to being a 3-piece. Just lots and lots of. There's a lot to dig into here.
Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, his leads. I love his leads. Like in the second half of the album, a lot of them start to be reminiscent of Dirty Behinds a bit. I mean,
yeah. Well, and to me, I picked up on kind of some Opeth-y type stuff as well. But now that that didn't pop into my head, but now that you say it, it does sound kind of Brent Hindsy.
Yeah,
especially they do the Mastodon thing where you play a riff. And then you do that riff again, but have one of the guitar tracks a couple steps up.
Yeah.
They do that thing. And I always love listening to Mastodon. I always love that thing. And they do it a couple times here, I think. Nothing specific comes to mind, but I picked up on some kind of Opeth-y type vibes. And after I said that to you the other day, and then after I was listening to it, I was like, Opeth, but also I think Opeth is just my touchstone for what progressive death metal sounds like.
Sure.
So everything that fits into that category will in some way be compared to it. Because I don't have a huge sample size for progressive death metal bands that I've listened to. The other thing that it really reminded me of, and an itch that I've wanted to scratch for years, is Horrendous.
Sure.
Which is a band you and I have talked about. Which is they're a progressive death metal band from New York, I think, and they haven't put out an album since 2018. And I've been like, I check their Spotify page periodically to be like, are you gonna do something new? And this album reminds me a lot of Horrendous, but with a bit more high energy and a bit more playful too.
Yeah, a little more experimental, I think. To some extent.
And there's just one thing that I noticed that I thought was kind of neat was also paying a little closer attention to the lyrics, because on the first track I was like, it's easy to pick up on all of like satanic themes, right? But there was an interesting sort of theme in the first track, which is diabolical mastery. I think that's diabolical majesty. Sorry,
right. That's the single from this, I believe.
Yes. Yeah. The first track there, the first verse of the lyrics seems to present the idea of because if you know anything about like what real world actual Satanists are like, is that they are generally very nice people, right? That believe in very deeply in human rights and that sort of thing. And the crux of the lyrics in the song seems to be this idea of all of these nice Satanists that have been damned to hell by Christianity for being Satanists are now leading like a demonic crusade against Christianity in revenge for being wrongfully sentenced to eternal damnation was sort of the gist of that. And I thought that was a really cool concept for a song. Something about it was just like, oh yeah, I like that. That's kind of neat. But this is very much a death metal album that leans very heavily into the sort of satanic side of metal in a kind of fun sort of way. Right. I mean, it's the same. Any Cannibal Corpse album sings about being a serial killer. Right. They wouldn't actually become a serial killer. Yes. Well, Pat might. Pat might, yeah. Every once in a while, I think about Pat Sheridan, and I'm just like, oh, yeah. Wait, no, Pat Sheridan's from Fit for an Autopsy. Right. Who was the guy from Cannibal Corpse? Pat O'Brien. Pat O'Brien. There we go. I remember that just popping up on my newsfeed, just like, what the fuck? That's bizarre. But speaking of Cannibal Corpse, George is on the final track. George Fisher, and I think that was because the track before that feels like the album closer, and I think they just did that track as like a bonus track. That track, because it fucking bops. That final track. That track is fucking awesome. Yeah, it is. But it just kind of like you have this huge build up and lots of like dynamics in the last song, which is. For me, that's what I love about like album closer tracks. And this felt like a bonus track, but it wasn't just like we had some other stuff. Here we go. Here's a bonus track. I was like, no, we've got fucking George Fisher and a posthumous appearance. Trevor, by Trevor Strnad. Strnad, I think. From Black Dahlia Murders. Black Dahlia Murder, who died earlier this year. In May. In May. I think this album came out after he passed away. Yeah. But a posthumous appearance from him. And I have not listened to it. I keep on meaning to listen to Black Dahlia Murder. I just haven't done it. I feel like they're a band I would enjoy. I just haven't gone back and listened to much of their catalog. I think there was like a newer album that came out in like 2016 that people had a lot of buzz about that I might have listened to some of and went like, oh yeah, this is good, but I didn't go back to it. So I think now that I've had more development, because when I was in college, classic death metal wasn't quite my thing. I was like trying to get into it and it didn't quite click. I think it would click a lot more now than it did back then. That last track, the last track feels like it's trying to be Revocation's take on like a Cannibal Corpse song. That's what the riffs feel like. And it actually got me moving my head. Yeah. Yeah. It's a ton of fun. Yeah. I was washing dishes and I got to stop for a moment. just vibe with this for a little bit. This album is just how long is it? It's like,
I mean, all the songs are 5 minutes long.
Yeah, this is 44 minutes, so not a normal amount of time, but it's only 9 tracks, something like that. Not a ton of tracks here. I will say, I think, like, as fun as I found the concept of it, there were a couple of times, because I listened to this album like 3-4 times, a couple of the listen throughs of like the first track, it felt a little too long. It's like, this is a good riff, but I've heard it 4 times before.
Right.
Like that one felt a little bit too long. And then there was one other song that felt a little too slow, a little too slow, or
near
sludgy.
the end of the album.
It might have been Godforsaken.
Yeah.
Felt just it didn't keep up the energy of the rest of the,
especially the 3 previous songs.
Yeah. And like, this is getting into favorite song territory, I guess, but Galleries of Morbid Artistry.
I love that song.
Oh my God. And that's definitely the one where I was like, oh, this sounds like Opeth.
Yeah.
Because there's a fucking clean guitar section in the middle of it.
And it's with harmonies, and
it's like this.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And it sounds like an Opeth song. I'm sorry. It actually does. If you listen to it, it sounds like an Opeth song, which is good because Opeth is great. Opeth is still great, but it sounds like an old Opeth song from their progressive death metal era.
From something like prior to Blackwater Park,
because they did a couple after Blackwater Park that were still death metal.
Sure.
I think Watershed was their last. Appropriately enough, like a watershed moment.
Right.
That was the point where the things kind of diverged and they changed their sound. But
the song before Gallery there, Strange and Eternal.
Yes.
That's the one where, like, in the last chorus of the song, he actually has a chorus behind him.
Yes.
Which really struck me.
I showed it to you yesterday, and I was like, does this not sound like a Gojira song?
Yeah, it does.
All it's missing is pick scrapes.
Yep.
And it's great because he's doing, there's a screamed vocal, and then there's kind of like a choir doing clean vocals behind it, and it sounded like
Gojira,
yeah, Gojira. What?
So like not Joe, yeah, Joe.
Joe, yeah. It sounded like something that Joe LaPlantier would do. But yeah, I don't want anyone to think like, oh, is these guys just kind of like copying a bunch of people? Like, no, this is its own thing. These are just what we have to compare it to, and they're all favorable comparisons.
Right. We're not saying, they're biters. They ripped them off.
Yeah, no, it's all fantastic stuff. Right. This album is a ton of fun.
It is.
So yeah, this album slaps.
Yes.
There's no question about that. I didn't do a lot of looking because it's Friday, so I had a late day at work, and then I came home and I ate some pizza, and then I had about 5 minutes where I came in here and turned my computer on, and then you showed up.
I had 2 sandwiches.
You had 2. That's right. You said you were going to have 2 sandwiches.
I did.
What kind of sandwiches were they?
It was salami and cheese, and with some Miracle Whip, because I felt like it's Friday. I need that tangy zip.
There you go.
And then I put Doritos on the sandwich for our crunch.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. But so I didn't look up quite how well. I read some reviews, and it seemed like people were in general were pretty positive,
right,
about this album. A lot of them were they weren't calling it a return to form necessarily, because this is a lot heavier on the death metal aspect of their sound than a lot of their previous work has been. A lot of their previous work is considered to be more thrashy than this is. So they weren't calling it necessarily a return to form, but a spiritual return to form for them, because the 2 albums previous to this, a lot of people felt that they had kind of lost a little bit of their spark,
right,
and a little bit of the sort of bounce and fun of it. And then this just kind of comes out the gate with just heavy fucking riffs, and it's just catchy, and it is a lot of fun. There are many albums that I enjoy deeply that I don't know if I would call them fun.
Yeah. Oh, I know that. I know a lot of your favorite albums are no fun. No fun at all.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That is 100% correct. And it's just a quirk about the art that I like. But I do have my favorites of albums that are just fun to listen to, and this is one of those. That's like the Era album we listened to earlier this year. That album's just a lot of fun to listen to. And this is a similar sort of vibe of just like, oh, these are some dudes that are really good at what they do, and they're just giving it their all, but they're not trying to be too they're not taking it too horrific. It doesn't, at least listening to it, feel like they're taking themselves too seriously.
They know who they are.
They know who they are, and they're making a fun technical death metal album that does what it says on the tin. This is a technical death metal album. There's a lot of amazing songwriting going on here, but none of it feels like wankery.
Right. You know, I think it would be better if they called it technically a death metal album.
Technically a death metal album.
Yeah.
But what's your favorite song?
I think it's Morbid Gallery.
I gotta
what is the fucking name of that song?
Galleries of Morbid Artistry.
Yes, Galleries of Morbid Artistry.
Yeah, that song has just got so much going for it.
And then it's Re-Crucified, and then I think it's the Ninth Chasm has a lot of great solos in it.
I do also quite like the song that feels like the closing track, the intervening abyss of untold aeons. Say that 5 times fast. But I quite like that one because it also opens with some acoustic guitar.
Yeah.
And you think like, oh, is this going to be a slow intro? And then the acoustic guitar just stops. Boom, time to go. And I thought that was a fun little bait and switch.
Right.
Sort of moment there. I enjoy that sort of stuff.
They're actually good at baiting and switching, this band is.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, they're master baiters and switchers.
I should have known at this point, but here we are. But Netherheaven by Revocation, 100% recommend it. What medal are you bestowing upon it? Like Maz Kanata to Chewbacca?
Gold.
Yeah, this is gold. This is great stuff. If you like death metal, you're gonna love this album. I think there's a lot to enjoy here. We didn't talk much about like Dave Davidson's vocals, which I think are pretty good.
They're very good.
It's the type of death metal vocals that I find more and more that I really enjoy, where it's not like, you know, there's something to be said for like the sort of the cadre of like the deathcore, the deathcore elite of vocalists. You know, you've got your Will Ramoses and whatnot who do insane, crazy, extremely impressive things with their vocals, and the range is just massive. But there's also something to be said for someone who just has a really good happy medium. Yeah. And that's kind of a very classic sort of death metal growl is Dave Davidson's sound. Not going too terribly deep and guttural with it. Right. Not a high black metal screech. Right. It's just right in the middle, and it sounds perfect for the type of music.
Sometimes he sounds like Travis, just a little bit. Yeah, sometimes.
And I heard it's kind of, I mean, that's kind of what George Fisher's vocals have sort of always been. He leans towards the guttural sometimes, but most of his vocals are kind of more mid-range or you know, mid-register type of screams. He's not going terribly deep with it. He just happens to have a deep voice. Right. And it was kind of an interesting transition on Re-Crucified between Dave's vocals, Trevor's vocals, and George's vocals, because it was none of them were so horribly different from each other, but also it was like I haven't listened to a lot of Black Dahlia Murder, and between Trevor and George, it was like they sound very similar to each other. And it got me thinking I should listen to more Black Dahlia Murder.
Trevor's was more backing vocals with his part.
His part was shorter. It was sort of his solo part was pretty short, and then he provided some backing vocals there. But this is a lot of fun. So next week is
Chuck miss?
It's the episode closest to the other holiday.
Yeah.
That other holiday.
Yule.
Yeah, you sure. So it will be Chuckmas next week, which means we're going to listen to an album by Death. The question is, what album do we want to listen to?
Which ones have we done already?
We haven't done Sound of Perseverance.
Have we done Utopia Banished?
Utopia Banished is a Napalm Death album.
Oh yeah, that is yeah, you're right. That's Napalm Death. Wrong Death. That's Napalm Death.
Yes.
The hell am I talking about?
We haven't done Scream Bloody Gore, which I believe I brought up before that I want to save for the last.
Yeah.
Just because that feels appropriate. So first year was Leprosy, then we did Spiritual Healing.
We did Symbolic at one point, didn't we?
Did we do Symbolic? Or did we do Human?
Oh, we did Human.
We did Human. I think we did Individual Thought Patterns as well.
Okay.
Because we will have had 4 Chuckmasses.
This will be our 5th one.
Yes, I think so.
Symbolic is, I think, one of my favorite Death albums.
Okay, let me just search really quick and make sure that we haven't done that one yet. I don't think we have, but let me just consult our directory really quick.
We've done so damn many of these. We're gonna start doubling up.
I don't believe we have done Symbolic. So we'll talk about that. And if I do a little bit more digging and find that we have listened to it, then it will be a different album by the band Death. If you want to listen along with us, just listen to their whole back catalog.
Sure. I mean, you can't go wrong.
Then you'll be prepared. You'll have a good time. Chuckmas next week. I'm excited for it. And we'll get to that. Until then, why don't you go ahead and follow our social media pages on Facebook and Twitter?
That was almost a threat. Why don't you go ahead
and do that? Why don't you do that, huh? You coward. What are you waiting for?
Exactly.
Facebook and Twitter. If you're still on either of those hellhole websites.
Yeah.
Then go ahead and do that if that's what you want to do. Otherwise, just subscribe to our feed on whatever it is you're using to listen to us. So until you hear from us again, I was about to do my radio sign off. Until you hear from us again, thanks for listening to another episode of the Bronze Metalist Podcast. I'm Kale.
I'm OJ.
Congratulations.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Bronze Metalist Podcast. This is the voice we're going to be using for the episode.
Okay.
Oh, jeez.
Well, this is going to be fun.
We're both little guys. We're both little goblins. Hi, it's me, Marcus. I'm the sad goblin. And boy, I'm just, I like the sad music.
I thought you said you were the sad goblin.
I have a deviated septum. I have a hard time breathing, so I have to wear a sleep apnea mask. My mom says I have to wear a sleep apnea mask. I'm also I'm 14 years old and I have a pair of glasses that's taped in the middle. I'm a nerd from an 80s movie. I also have diabetes.
And I don't know why it is that in addition to just being physically weak and, unfashionable, all nerds in old movies also had to have some sort of ailment.
Right. They always have an inhaler or